Welcome to the Impact Sales Tribe VIP call for today. And today we're jumping into a topic that I love to talk about because I love talking about topics that are not only sales related, but kind of overlap into other areas of life. And this is going to be one of these topics that is going to do that. It's absolutely prevalent in sales, but it also really is something you're going to be able to use in other areas of your life as well. So for everybody that's here live and for the people that watch the recording of this, don't just only look at this through a sales optic. Look at this through life in general and how you can utilize some of this information that we're going to share. So today we're going to talk about the importance of listening to understand. Really, listening to understand what somebody is trying to say. And we're going to talk about the pitfalls of what happens when you don't do that. And then we're going to talk about the benefits of when you do. But the whole topic is about listening to understand. And I'm going to open things up for questions at the end of this session so we can address any questions that might come up. And of course, obviously, you can reach out to me at any point if you catch this recording later and you want to ask a question. We'll certainly answer it. So as far as listening to understand, one of the things that a lot of people don't understand about sales, and I'm going to also put a little parenthesis around sales and say relationships and communication as well. Many people struggle with these things. They struggle with sales or relationships or communication because they listen incorrectly. And I want you to kind of keep this thought in the back of your mind. I want you to keep an open mind to what we're going to talk about today. And I want you to realize that people miss opportunities, both in sales, professionally, both in relationships, both in communication, by listening incorrectly. When they listen incorrectly, bad things can happen or nothing can happen, which in some cases is a bad thing. But when people listen incorrectly, they miss opportunities. And we're going to talk about what that means here over the next few minutes. And we're going to really just dig into why this is so important for sales and why it's really a skill you want to hone in everything that you do. So we talk about this a lot with the sales activists. We talk about it in our Impact Sales Mastery program. You need to really understand certain things about personal interaction. And the one thing that is really important to understand is when you are interacting with a prospect or just another person in general, somebody else that you interact with or communicate with or meet with or talk to, make sure that you don't just listen to hear what they're saying. When you're in a sales environment and you're talking to a prospect, make sure you don't just listen to hear your prospect. You really must understand what they're trying to tell you. And I'm going to talk about why this is so important and some of the pitfalls that people fall into and traps they fall into when they don't listen to understand. But it's really important you understand the difference. So listening to hear your prospect is only going to take you so far. It's only going to keep you on the periphery. It's not going to do some of the most important things that you need to do as a professional, engaging somebody in a sales interaction. You can't only listen to hear your prospect. And we're going to talk about how you shortchange yourself in that process in a minute. You really need to strive towards listening to understand. And let me just give you a couple of reasons why that's so important. Not only is it important for you to really understand the landscape as best as you can, it's very important for you to avoid any potential temptation for you to take the process in the wrong direction. And we'll talk about that in a minute as well. It's really important that you listen to understand your prospects. You must not listen to just hear what they say. You must listen to understand what they mean. Now, this is one of these points that it might seem like splitting hairs, but it's really, really not. Have you ever run into somebody that they're telling you one thing, they're telling you something that you think is loud and clear, but based upon maybe their reaction, maybe their posture, maybe their visual state, maybe the expression they make on their face, whatever it is that they're saying to you doesn't align with what you think is really going on? I'll give you a great example. Somebody walks in to meet with you, sit down, and they start crying. Okay, and this is an extreme example, but they start crying sitting in front of you, and you say, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And they say, "Yes, I'm okay. I'm fine." Do you really think that they're fine? They're crying. They're breaking down in front of you. Of course not. Hearing what they say does not necessarily tell you the story. The story is in understanding what they really mean. What they really mean when they say that is, I'm not okay. I appreciate you asking. Let's not dwell on this, right? And then obviously it's up to you whether you take it further or not. So people will not always tell you really what they're thinking or how they're feeling. They may tell you one thing and mean another. They may react one way and actually mean another. And this is important to understand in sales, because with all things being equal and taking that emotional example off the table, if somebody's just sitting there interacting with you and you get no facial expression that tells you much, you don't get a posture reaction, you don't really understand where they are, and they tell you one thing, you really don't know if that's really what they're really focused on. You really don't know if it's what's important to them, what they mean by it. You just have the words to work off of. Now, this is really important, and I know we're getting into psychology here, but sales is a lot about psychology. It's really important that you focus on the word mean in this paragraph on this slide. You really need to understand what they're really saying, what they really mean by what it is they tell you. Now, that's important for you for a lot of reasons, and we're going to talk about those now. It's important for you for one very specific reason to start, because if you don't dig deeper, really, and understand what matters most to your prospect, whether it's at that split second or in a greater, broader picture as it relates to your offering, your product, your service, whatever it is. If you really don't understand what matters most to them, you run the risk of what I call skipping ahead. Skipping ahead, right? Now, what is skipping ahead? Skipping ahead is when somebody tells you something and on face value, you take it for what it is, and you, in your mind, skip ahead in the process to where you think you want to go. And I'll give you a great example. This happens all the time in selling environments. Somebody says, "Oh, wow, that's really interesting." You share something with them and they say, "Oh, that's really interesting. That's impressive," or "I really like that." You know what happens to the human psyche, especially somebody who's in sales and they're working with that prospect or client and they're trying to figure out what the next step is, and somebody says, "Oh, that's really interesting," or that's really exciting," or "I love what that does." You know what you do? You skip ahead. You skip ahead. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much experience you have. Psychologically, emotionally, in your mind, you start skipping ahead. "Oh, wow, this person's probably really gonna, take advantage of what I'm gonna offer them. They're gonna buy, they're gonna be a client." You start skipping ahead. It's human nature. It just is. It's the way people react. Now, some people obviously catch themselves and they go back and they kind of work through what they need to work through. But part of the reason why working to understand at a deeper level what matters most to your prospect is because you develop a connection with them at a different level that prevents you from skipping ahead. It prevents you from shortchanging the process and maybe shooting yourself in the foot later on when it comes time for the close, because you don't skip ahead. You don't shortchange that process. You don't miss any important things. You don't miss something that you may need to know later on, something you may need to really understand and know later on when it comes to actually wrapping this up and working with them as a client. If you skip ahead in the process, if you skip ahead in the communication, and you do that because you only heard what they said and you didn't really understand what they meant or what means the most to them, you are going to do yourself a great disservice. You just will. A lot of people will do this naturally. They just get ahead of themselves. Now, that one reason is people's own psychology. They get excited, they see an opportunity. Some people are more controlled about it. They're more under control and more passive about it. It doesn't resonate. Some people, at the slightest little glimpse of a positive outcome, immediately start to push, immediately start to press, immediately try to move to a close and get into things as quick as possible. And why is that? Because a lot of people are, they struggle with patience. They struggle with, sitting back and waiting for the right time, for the best opportunity, for the right situation to actually move forward and close. They jump right on things aggressively. Now, I'm not in any way saying that that's not appropriate sometimes. Most of the time, if this is where you are in that interaction and you start to press at that point, I hate to burst anybody's balloon, but it is not going to end up well. It just won't. Maybe the rare occasion that somebody is actually very anxious and ready to move forward, that they'll respond well to that. Most of the time, they won't. Most of the time, you'll alienate them. So you have to be very, very careful not to skip ahead. And listening to understand prevents you from doing that. Listening to understand really what they're saying and what it means, as well as what matters most to them, is what keeps you in check, keeps you in line. But you're not missing out on anything. You're not missing out on a better outcome by not skipping ahead. In fact, it actually works the opposite. When you control yourself, when you're patient, when you're following things in the way that I'm describing it right now, you're going to find you position yourself better for success later. You position yourself better for a close. And we'll talk about why in a second. So it's really important to get that when you're interacting with people in these situations, and when somebody shares something with you and you hear it, but you don't understand it, that should be your warning sign that you need to do something. And that one thing that you need to do, we talk about this a lot in Impact Sales Mastery. We are all over this in ISM and the importance of really focusing on this, but it's so true in any interaction. When somebody gives you something that you just know is not everything, or it doesn't tell you the whole story, or going back to the analogy of the person sitting there crying in front of you, of course you're going to ask what's going on. Of course you're going to try to figure out what's happening, what's upsetting them, why they are in the state that they're in. Well, guess what? It's the same in a selling environment. You must always ask impact-focused questions. Now, for anybody who's just catching this new, impact-focused questions are open-ended questions that get your prospect or client talking about what the impact is on them and what means most to them. What will the impact be on your business? What will the impact be on you personally? What would that do for you? Tell me specifically what it is. Does that save you time, money, frustration? Does it give you peace of mind? Does it help your employees? You start going down a path of talking about the impact, not just what you offer and what they pay, but the impact of what it is that you do for them and how much this will benefit them. And you get them talking about those things because it does very, very specific things that work in your favor. And these are all the things. These three things are highlighted in yellow on this slide. These three things are the things that you shortchange yourself on if you skip ahead. If you skip ahead, it's kind of like, you're reading a book and you decide, hey, there's 20 chapters. I've read the first 5. I'm going to skip the next 10 and I'm going to read the last 5. Well, guess what? There's going to be some holes in the story. There's going to be some breakdowns in the fluid nature of that story, right? Well, it's the same in a sales environment. It's absolutely the same. So after you ask those impact-focused questions, understand that it's designed to protect you from skipping ahead. But here are the 3 things that absolutely, absolutely make it so important for you. And this is why listening to understand is so important. Number 1, of course, it gives you a deeper layer of understanding of what your prospect is looking for, needs, wants, desires. It gives you that. So that's the first thing. You can circle that. That's number 1. It gives you a deeper layer of understanding. That's really, really good. Second, that process, just the process of asking those impact-focused questions, unpacks emotion. Okay? It unpacks emotion. When you get people talking about these things and you're asking them, How would that make you feel? Would that help you in your business? Would that make your employees feel better? Would that make your wife feel better now that you're getting time back and you go on a vacation? Is your husband going to appreciate the opportunity of you getting more time away because you haven't been able to take a vacation in 5 years? You get to unpack emotion. And I don't care who you talk to sales wise, unless you're a robot, emotion plays a significant role in your sales success. It just does. You have to unpack emotion. So that's number two. Number one is deeper layers of understanding. Number two, you're unpacking emotion. You're making it real. It's getting real emotional, and it's creating a desire to want to move towards those things that they are saying are important to them. Okay. And number three, and this is the one that we talk about a lot, again, in ISM, and it's so true. By asking those questions, by getting a deeper layer of understanding, by unpacking emotion, you're now in that rare stratosphere of people that we talk about as having crossed the impact line. You're now into the impact phase. You're talking about impact. You're unpacking emotion. You're really understanding what they're all about, and you're creating a true bond with your prospect. You're creating a true bond with them, and people really miss this opportunity when they skip ahead. They miss this opportunity to create that bond. Now, these three things are so important for you for a lot of reasons. They're important for you, number one, to make your prospect more comfortable with you and position yourself as that trusted advisor, as we talk about a lot. Number two, it's really important to you because it dramatically increases your likelihood of winning that business and signing them as a client. I mean, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but triple, quadruple, or more the likelihood of your success. You do this well versus not doing this and shortchanging the process and skipping ahead. You're going to close on a much higher level when you follow these steps. And the third, and this is one that is absolutely so important as well, is when there are challenges, when there are obstacles, when there are objections, when there's maybe a little bit of buyer's remorse, or maybe there's something that comes up later that could potentially torpedo your interaction with them, your sale, make sure that you have done these things, because if you have, you now have something to go back to. You have something to work with. You know, a prospect says, you know, I don't know if now's the right time for us to move forward. And you ask them these additional questions to get a deeper level of understanding, and you unpack the emotion and you develop the bond. You're able to go back to them and say something like, well, Susan, I'm sorry to hear that, but help me understand better. When we were talking about this, you had said that it was very, very important for you to address this need in your business right now because there were many things going on, including the happiness of several key employees that were resting pretty heavy on your heart. You were concerned that you were going to lose these folks. They've been with the company a long time. You know you needed to do something. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't remind you that you said that this was important to you. Now, Susan, let me ask you this question. Has something changed? Is something different than when we just talked about this? Because when we talk about this, that was the driving force behind why you wanted to do this. And see, now, just as an example, now I've reminded them of what they said was important because I had a deeper layer of understanding of what was important to them. We unpacked emotion again. And you know what? I reminded them of that because I felt comfortable doing it. I developed a bond with them. They shared with me, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to point that out to them. Look, you told me this was important to you. This is a real thing to you, and you wanted to address this. So by doing these things, you now have so much more ammunition available to you when it comes to dealing with objections or things that might trip up the deal. And I want to take it one step further. If in the weird chance or the off chance that client does leave you and you're going back to, let's say, try to win back their business. Well, let me ask you this. If on the rare chance, and it doesn't happen often, but on the rare chance that they did sign with you after you skipped ahead in the process and they did actually become a client, and then a month later they drop you. A month later they decide they're not going to work with you anymore. What do you have to work with when you go back? What do you really know? You know, you skipped ahead. You missed the opportunity. You heard what they said. You moved ahead, you pressed, you signed them, you got lucky, you signed them, but you have nothing else to work with. you have very little chance of winning them back. But by following this process of getting a deeper understanding, really understanding what's important to them, understanding what they mean, unpacking emotion, and building that bond and earning their right as a trusted advisor, earning that right to be that person, you position yourself in a way that other people can't compete with. You put yourself in a place that they just can't compare to. Because those people that are out there shortchanging the process, the people that are out there that are skipping ahead, they're not going to last. They're not going to last with that prospect if they don't build real relationships. They're going to churn and burn clients all the time. They aren't going to really grow their business. They're going to be fighting for the same small handful of clients over and over again. They're not going to grow because they're not building relationships. And ultimately, they're not going to be around. So if that's your competition, that might be good for you. But the fact is, let's make sure it's not you. Let's make sure you don't put yourself in that place. And the way you avoid doing that is by not skipping ahead, by following impact-focused questions where they lead you, finding out what really means the most to that prospect, getting that deeper layer of understanding, not what they say, but what they really mean when they start describing it. And then tapping into that emotion and building that bond. And these are things that just absolutely align very, very well with your success. And this is why listening to understand is so important versus just hearing. You not only protect yourself from skipping ahead and shortchanging your likelihood for a successful sales interaction, but you set yourself up for success when you move towards listening to understand. You give yourself a much higher likelihood for success. Now, I know this all sounds easy when I talk about it, right? It all sounds easy when I describe it. It's all in a nice, neat paragraph here that highlights this, but there's a lot that gets, unpacked in this. It's not just emotion. There's a lot. I mean, you really develop that bond. That relationship is true and real. And some people, even on the sales side, even when they want to be successful and they know their product or service or offering is really going to help people, they are uncomfortable engaging people at that level. And if that's you and that's the type of person you are and you're struggling with that, and I'm speaking specifically right now to the people that struggle with that, please reach out to me because we can help. The Sales Activist and Impact Sales Mastery can help you get beyond that, make you more comfortable with those interactions. And I'm going to tell you a little secret about this. This isn't a technique. This isn't a tactic. This is just being real and engaging people in a very, very real, emotional way. And look, nothing is ever guaranteed. It doesn't mean you're going to win 100% of the business. You're not going to close every deal you have, and nor would you want to, because some of them just probably may not be the right fit. But for the ones that are, and even the ones that aren't, you're doing something that is so important to your business. You're building real relationships. You're building real interactions. And whether they do or don't work with you as a client, remember, you get paid in multiple ways. If you haven't heard this one before, this is one we talk about all the time. You get paid in multiple ways. One in the form of the products and services that you offer. And the second is in the form of warm and friendly introductions that your prospects and clients share with you so you can help other people. And these things all align themselves when you can get comfortable with these steps. So if you're struggling with that in any way, reach out to me personally, reach out to the Sales Activist team. We'll be happy to talk with you about it, help walk you through it, and get you set up for success. This is just one of those important things. Again, it's not just sales related. It is life related when it comes to listening to understand. It plays a major role in sales, but it also plays a role in all the other aspects of your life as well. So that was what I wanted to cover today. I'm excited about this because this is just so real and everyday for everybody. It's not one of those one-off weird scenarios that people talk about. This is everyday life for folks, whether you're talking about sales or whether you're talking about normal interaction. This stuff is important. So, I want to take a minute now and I want to open things up and see if there are any questions for the people that are here live with us. Happy to answer any questions. And it can be related to this topic or any other sales related topic here on the VIP call. So Who has a question for me? Any questions out there? Just check him. Okay. Well, I must have done a great job going through that then. But as it relates to questions on this or any other sales related topic, if you're in the Impact Sales Tribe, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly, reach out to anybody on our team. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. And remember, in the Impact Sales Tribe, we're here for your support. So if you have a sales related question, maybe a positioning question, maybe something related to a particular prospect, don't hesitate to reach out via email. We'll be happy to answer and get back to you as soon as possible to give you the help that you need. Want to thank everybody who was able to join us today live. And for those of you that catch this recording, if you're struggling with sales in any way and you want some help, reach out to us at the Sales Activist. We're happy to help you in any way that we can. My name is Joe Beck, and I look forward to catching up with you soon. Have a great day.